Hey there, this is MaxConvexity in Austin, Texas. I wanted to talk today about QQQY ETF. It's caused a lot of controversy on the internet. Of course, it's the fund with the big 67% yield. Everyone thinks it's got to be a Ponzi scheme, or it's got to be they're selling naked options, or doing something crazy. Everyone's that the thing is it has a double whammy against it. It's using a 0 DTE option, which that's not even true. They're actually 1 day till expiration, but it's using those options, and it's also using options at all and writing options, which can also have a reputation for being extremely risky. Of course, that's probably the number one misunderstanding about this fund, is that selling the put makes this fund leveraged, or because they use an option, or God forbid, because it's a 0-day option, it adds some type of extra degree of risk. And it's just not so. When you're selling an option, you're actually giving the market leverage. You're the one providing the leverage. The people that own this fund are providing the leverage for the YOLO people that are buying puts, hoping the market will drop 5 or 10% in a day. This option selling and option writing is the OG liquidity pool. Look at this thing. It's paying 50-60% right now. Is there any crypto liquidity pools paying 50 or 60%? There probably are. I don't know. Put it in the comments if you know of any. Of course, Warren Buffett, widely considered the greatest investor of all time, does it all the time. He got like $7.7 billion worth of option premium income in 2008. So it's not particularly risky. It's less risky than just owning stocks, just owning the index without selling puts. It's actually kind of a partial hedge, or it's definite dampener on volatility. The thing that is true about it, it does underperform or lag an investor that doesn't sell options. If you just own the QQQ, the NASDAQ index, and you don't sell options over a long enough time period, you're going to come out way ahead of the guy that's doing this QQQY. If you're concerned about total return. And of course, total return, who's not? I mean, that's how we keep score in this society, is who has more money. However, there are lots of situations, depending on your financial goals. A lot of people have already had enough total return in their life, and they've got all the total return they need. They're worried now about a little current income. So, depending on your financial situation, this can make a lot of sense, or make no sense at all. But it's the stuff that's going around on the internet about it being a Ponzi scheme, or picking up pennies in front of a steamroller is another one I've heard. It's just they're just not true. It's just not true. But the thing about this that I really like this fund in particular, the QQQY, more so than I do the yield max funds. But I like the idea of those as well. But those have an extra component to them, and so it has an extra thing that can go wrong. Of course, it's also an extra thing that can go right. I'm still looking into the yield max funds, but I am just sold on the QQQY concept. I'm an option trader. I have been for years. I've been a lot recently after COVID, I think, like all of us. But then also some in the 2000s. I'm obsessed with options, especially selling options, and especially I'm obsessed with using options to hedge other positions. They're just a great financial instrument. They're my favorite financial instrument. Okay, check out this back test. This shows you what would happen if you sold a put every day, a 1 DTE put every day, a 65 delta put, which is the same type of put that the QQQY is selling. And this goes back 13 years to 2010. Of course, selling puts, you win selling any options 2 times out of 3 times about. That's just built into options. With puts, it's a little bit more, especially with puts on an index, or it can be. The win rate for this particular option over 13 years is 71%. You collect a lot of premium. if you'll notice, a lot of people are, one thing that people say about this strategy is they say, well, you're selling puts, you're going to get killed if the market goes down. Well, guess what? This strategy right here, the selling put strategy, their biggest month ever in the past 13 years was 2020. And, and of course everyone remembers what happened then. But what else happened then is the volatility went through the roof. When the market starts tanking, volatility goes through the roof. When volatility goes through the roof, option market makers juice the price of the options up. I mean, the market makers aren't stupid. How do you think they afford all those big houses in Chicago and on the North Shore or wherever they live? I mean, that's, in Scottsdale, Arizona, and everywhere. That's how they pay for those houses. They know what they're doing. So anyway, a fund like this that sells a put every day will catch that. It'll take advantage of it. It'll take advantage of that. And even though it's not a short fund or a hedged type fund like the J.P. Morgan hedged equity, even though it's nothing like that, it can show a big profit in a situation like that, just due to the rising volatility. If you look here, at selling the same call, you'll notice, even though it's technically should be a 2 out of 3 winning time, because it is selling an option, it's a little bit less because it's a call on an index. Indexes, especially the NASDAQ, have tended to trend up to a pretty severe degree. And also the other thing is puts are historically priced richer. They're overpriced. These calls aren't priced as expensive usually. People use puts for protection anyway, and a lot of people sell calls. So, but you can see, so the profit per trade on a call is no good. So there's no built-in edge in just selling a call indiscriminately. Now you can sell certain calls and make lots of money, but there's a built-in edge and has been for years in puts. Rich people have been doing it, hedge funds, banks, institutions. In fact, this is what I found that was really interesting when I really looked deeper into it. The Chicago Board of Exchange, Chicago Board of Options, they have their own research arm, and I think they do a pretty good job. Anyway, their research department put out this thing, a white paper on what would happen if you sold a put every week, or a monthly put. The first thing they started on was a monthly put, and they made an index that tracks a theoretical portfolio that just sells a put every month, and then when the next month rolls around, it rolls the put to the next month. If it made any money, it puts it in treasuries, and it just keeps doing that. It does that continuously. Anyway, they've been tracking this since 1987, and it's up something like $100 in 1987 would have you at something like $1,700 now. It's if you had just done that strategy. So that is definitely a winning strategy. Selling a put every month is there's no doubt. In fact, what they found out is your annual return for just owning the index is 9.8%, but your annual compound return for selling the monthly put is 9.54%. You do almost as well, but the catch is you have a lower standard deviation. You aren't as volatile, so you make a much better risk-adjusted return. And the same goes for you even do a little bit better on the shorter term one. So then whenever the Chicago Board of Options started offering weeklies, they started making a weekly put index that tracks the same methodology, selling a weekly put, rolling it, putting the profits into treasuries. And they started tracking that in January of 2006. And that one did have good risk-adjusted performance, but it also did have lower total performance than the monthly one. And the monthly put had lower total performance than the S&P 500, just owning that outright. The reason is when you're selling the put once a month, of course you're capping the upside. Everyone knows that. The reason why the weekly put kicks off more premium income than the monthly put by about 50%, by a pretty good amount, is because it can reprice its options. It sells the put every week. So it also has more bites at the apple, so to speak. But in a volatility event where volatility is going up, it doesn't get stuck like the monthly put does. The monthly put option or strategy is way more path dependent. Anyway, we see a 50% rise from the weekly to the monthly, and I would expect about the same to the daily, because it's about the same magnitude different from weeks to days. That's about a magnitude of 5, just like weeks to months is also a magnitude of 5. So I would expect about 50% off the S&P 500 in premiums once this is said and done. And yes, it'll still underperform. In total, it'll underperform the S&P 500, but I do think it is totally reasonable, based on this study, that it can make 50% return every year. That's a totally defensible assumption, especially after I saw this study. Now, the interesting thing is the NASDAQ, of course, is more volatile traditionally than the S&P 500, and that's why I think that they think they're going to make 67% or so on the NASDAQ, and I bet that's defensible. I bet they have numbers that could back that up. I bet if I pulled these same numbers on the NASDAQ, it would back that up. Anyway, I'm a big believer in this fund. I'd like to know what you guys think. Of course, not financial advice. Just a random guy talking on the internet. Don't listen to random guys on the internet. It could be dangerous. Do your own due diligence and let me know what you think. There's been a lot of great coverage on this. Retire on Dividends does a great job. He knows so much about this fund, and I think he's an options trader. He very, very knowledgeable. That's who I go to find out about this fund. But I just wanted to kick in my 2 cents and show you these back tests I found and explain why I think this will work, and and I think it'll continue to work, and I think it has been working. And these people that say it's going to erode to zero, they just don't understand what they're talking about. Anyway, have a good day.